want to, this is Angela speaking. It says that we are in practice mode. Sharon, did you press record?
I did, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, welcome everybody to today's meeting of the Jones Library Building Committee. We're going to go around and just indicate that you're present verbally. Sharon?
Here.
George?
Here.
Christine?
Here.
Farah?
Here.
Pam?
Here.
Paul Bockelman?
Here.
And I'm Austin Sarrett. Okay, good. So first item of business is the approval of the minutes of November 19th. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you so much. Any discussion, corrections to the minutes of November 19th? Okay, how about we approve them by unanimous consent if there's no objection? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. The next item is the approval of the minutes of January 27th, 2025. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
second? Okay, any corrections to those minutes? Yeah, Pam.
No corrections, but I just wanted to note that that wasn't an actual, I mean, it wasn't really a meeting of our body. It was a forum in which the consulting parties were discussing the Section 106. So we were just sort of the framework within which that happened.
Correct, but except it was convened as a Jones Library Building Committee meeting, so.
Yeah, we didn't really get a chance to discuss anything, that's all.
Okay, again, the question is on the approval of these minutes. Any objection to approving the minutes? Okay, it's unanimous. Good, thank you so much. All right, next is the town manager's report.
I'm sorry, I don't have my camera on my phone. So, report that the contract with Fontaine Brothers has been signed, and I think Bob Parent will be able to give you an update on where we are in terms of status of that. We have received 2 payments from the Mass Board of Library Commissioners, which is their obligation to the town under the contract. That happened this week, I believe. And the project is moving forward.
Great. Questions for the town manager? Yep, Pam.
So we didn't have to submit the request for funds. That's already taken place.
Yes, we did that. They had to do that. They had to distribute the money before April 30th, and there were some time constraints on how much time they needed and the material that we had to have to be able to request the funds. So we met all the deadlines on the town's part, and then they turned the payment around and executed the request for payment to the comptroller. And so those funds have come into the town's coffers.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Paul, for all the work you and the town staff did, and Bob, as always, heroic work. Thank you for all of that. Speaking of Bob, item number 4 is the finance director report. Bob, are you pitching in?
That's what I heard. So
Pitch.
I will pitch relative to the first 2 items because those are town invoices, and then I'd ask Sharon to comment on the second 2 invoices, since those ultimately are library expenses.
Right.
The first 2 invoices that are listed, in getting ready for this meeting and making certain that we had really taken care of all of our responsibilities under our consulting contracts, we discovered that there were 2 invoices from last April and May that were still outstanding, and that FAA has been patiently waiting for payment for. And those, as you see in the agenda, is an invoice for 8398.50 and for 32,500. I've reviewed both of those invoices. Both of those invoices are for work that they have under contract and satisfactorily completed. So I'd recommend that those two be paid.
Right, so let's take those two first. Bob has made a motion that they be paid. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and is there any discussion of these invoices?
Procedurally, if you don't mind, I'm not a building committee member,
Yep, all
so,
right, so I'm moving that we approve them.
okay.
Pam?
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm. So this is last spring. This is before, this is before the bid, was put on hold essentially. So this doesn't have anything to, these couple of, invoices didn't have anything to do with the redesign for cost cutting. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, any other questions about these two invoices? Oh,
Actually,
Pam?
I did have a question. I'm looking at my circles on my page. On the invoice 19826, that was the May 31 invoice. The difference between this invoice and the first one of April is that it's the item number PO 269.11, so that was the permitting proposal. So back in April, there had been no time spent on the historic commission, historic tax commission credits, et cetera. That whole permitting chunk hadn't really been activated or accomplished yet. But in May, they had done all the work necessary for the tax credits and the historic commission, et cetera. I thought we already talked about this. I thought that, I mean, that particular item on invoice 19826 is sort of what triggered the whole conversation about, geez, did we actually get anything for those historic tax credits or not? So I just have a recollection that that particular item has already been paid, but I could be mistaken because I don't have anything to compare it to.
Bob?
I can confirm that this item, which is amendment number 11, hasn't previously been paid. My recollection obviously goes back a few months, is that at one point FAA was proposing additional compensation for some permitting services. I don't remember if it was planning board permitting services or other, and we said you have an outstanding additional permitting phase account that you haven't fully expended. Let's fully expend that first. And that's what they did there. They basically were billing against this task or this amendment number 11 before we agreed. And I don't remember if we ultimately agreed to execute an additional amendment to cover additional permitting services. So this was broadly paid under additional permitting requirements on the project.
Thank you.
Okay, are we ready to vote to approve the payment of these invoices? Okay, all in favor of doing so, please raise your hand.
Hey.
Okay, oh, Christine, did you have a question?
I was raising both hands.
Okay, raise your regular hand. Good, so it's unanimous. Okay, Sharon, you want to talk about the other two invoices?
Okay, so there's one from November of 24 for almost 42,000, and then there's a second from December for 1,600. Yes, the work has been done. Let's pay them.
Right. Okay, any questions about either of those invoices? Pam?
So again, just to confirm, this is for work that was done to reduce cost. I'm looking at Sharon.
It was a part of the rebid, yes.
Okay, any other question about those two invoices? Okay, everybody in favor of paying the invoices, please raise your hand. Okay, I can't see Bockelman, but the vote is unanimous, except I couldn't see Bockelman.
Yes,
Bockelman,
yes.
okay, Bockelman voted 3 times. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you. Okay. Thank you for that, Bob. Thank you, Sharon. Bob. Next is the OPM report.
Certainly. Some of this is old news, but just for the record, we'll go through it. As I expect you've all heard, we successfully made it through the Section 106 process, which was necessary in order to comply with federal requirements, both for the NEH grant and for the HUD grant. And by doing that, we also therefore complied with the threshold requirements of MEPA, which is the Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act, that requires us to have an executed MOA with the Mass Historic Commission, which we now have as a result of successfully completing the Section 106 process. We also did complete a archaeological survey of the property towards the rear of the library building, which may not have been disturbed during the more recent reconstructions. So our archaeologists wanted to make certain that that site was investigated, and they also did investigation along the Amherst Historical Society property that we're going to be operating on, not building things on, but operating on. And they wanted to make certain that there weren't any issues, archaeological issues related to that. That work was done. They found minor remnants of things, many of which were probably effectively put there during the library reconstruction activities. In other words, fill that was brought on site, little small shards and pieces of things, nothing of any significant archaeological significance. But the way the process works, that material has to be identified, it has to be cataloged, it has to be retained. And that work has been done, and that work has been sent in and okayed by Mass Historic. So the bottom line is nothing of significance found, some historical remnants in fill that was moved around most likely and or transported to the site when the library was reconstructed.
Great.
The last item is still pending. The second piece of complying with the HUD grant requirements was one to complete the Section 106 process, the historical preservation process. That had to be completed first, and then we, as a prerequisite to submitting the environmental assessment for the project, which is a requirement of HUD. It is not a requirement of NEH. They do their own internal environmental assessment, which they had already completed. We submitted that environmental assessment. We were asked to extend the public comment from the typical 15-day public comment period to a 30-day public comment period, which we did. The public comment period expired on that this last Monday, April 28th. We received 4 comments, none of them that I consider to be, particularly concerning. But we are required to respond to those public comments, and
Right.
I'm just starting to draft responses to them. Expect those responses to get out certainly within the next week, if not within the next couple of weeks. Once we submit those responses or we provide those responses as well as the public comments then get sent along to HUD, along with a request for HUD to release funds for the project. HUD then goes through their own internal review process and has their own public notice process in which public comments can be submitted again.
Right.
And they don't close that process out and ultimately agree to release funds until their process has been complied with.
Anything else, Bob?
Nope, I think that's the required reviews. We're near the end. We're not 100% there, but we're very close to it.
Okay, questions about the OPM report? All right. I want to thank Bob for the work that he's done. I want to remind ourselves that Colliers will be returning to the project as the, I guess, official OPM. And we look forward to working with them. We will determine as we need to the building committee schedule. We'll have to meet to approve invoices and hear reports as the project develops. Okay. I know of no correspondence or topics not anticipated. We have 10 attendees. I'm grateful. Thank you so much for coming. Now an opportunity for public comment if anyone wants to make it. Oh, Christine, I'm sorry.
I'm just wondering, on the agenda, there was the temporary space and moving, like, are we
not yet.
covering?
Yeah, not yet figured out. I thought that's what Bob, did you want to say more about the temporary space?
Certainly, I'll just, if you'd like, I can stick to the agenda just in case there's any questions regarding. So we had an agenda item for budget. Basically, the budget is as I presented to the town council several weeks ago.
Yep.
You know, at this point, we believe we're getting into the project with about an 8.5% contingency. No new news there. Temporary space. We have identified temporary space. It's this temporary space that we had identified previously. You might recall that we had talked about 101 University Drive as being the temporary space for the library. We've actually, may or may not be aware, we've gone through 3 competitive procurements for temporary space at this point. And at the end of the day, that 101 University Drive was the only space was the highest ranked space, was the only space that was located within the town of Amherst and had the best lease price. So when the opportunity to move forward with the project came forward, we identified that as a unique property under the state's unique property guidelines. And we've noticed that to the public through the central register and expect to be in a position to be able to execute a lease at the end of that 30-day notification process. We are releasing the temporary moving RFP on Monday, or invitation for bids on Monday, and we'll be getting responses for that a couple of weeks later. You know, that's the next, big thing that has to happen. You know, construction can't happen until we can move out of the library. So that's going to be the next critical stage in the process. Timeline, I think as folks have heard, we're tentatively looking at mobilization sometime in the middle of June. It might be a little bit later than that due to the need for us to be able to get out of the library before the contractor comes in, or there may be a little bit of overlap. It's conceivable that the contractor may be able to start some activities such as putting in construction fencing and other types of things outside the building without the library being fully evacuated. So we're working through those details to be able to work both for the town in terms of what we have to do and for the contractor for what we need them to do as well. And then there's a couple of other procurements that are in process right now. We have to hire a firm to do materials testing, concrete testing, soil testing, steel inspection, things like that. That'll be posted very shortly. And we have to bring a hazardous materials consultant on board, and we expect to be doing that right now. We're exploring going through, the state has a list of pre-procured firms, which will expedite the process, and we're taking a look at doing that so we can have a firm on hand when we need to have a firm on hand. And I think that covers the items I had on my list.
Laura?
Bob, is the space on University Drive adequate for everything that's in the library? Like, is there going to be storage space? Are some departments going to be elsewhere?
That's a question for Sharon.
Sharon. And
Hi.
thank you for all your wonderful work.
So most everything will fit at 101. All the collections, with the exception of the adult collection, will fit at 101. The adult collection is going to be split up a little bit. But interlibrary loan is going to continue, programming is going to continue. What else can I say? Yeah, no, 101 University Drive is quite lovely. I think patrons are really going to love it. Plenty of free parking, completely handicapped accessible, lots of natural light, restrooms.
And on a bus line.
On a bus line, and it's less than a half a mile away from the Jones. So, thank you for asking.
Can I ask one more quick question? Will the branches have to be open longer?
At first, they're not going to be, so that staff can be focused on packing and moving, and then we'll find out what happens after that.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Pam? You're muted, Pam. You're muted.
Hard to believe. Thank you. Those are some of the same questions I had. In terms of the temporary space, can you give us, what's the rough square footage that you're able to lease down there at 101?
I believe it's 19,000 square feet and change.
Right.
It's the majority of the second floor, not all of the second floor, the majority of the second floor and part of the first floor.
Great. The other follow-up, it's not really move related, but it's sort of next steps in construction. I don't know if you're wanting to talk about this now. Because there were still some outstanding items of things like, with the result of the 106 outcomes, there is discussion about reducing the amount of woodwork that would be removed within the library. And so the question that came to my mind is, have we identified areas where woodwork removal will be reduced? And do we have to have Feingold go back and do some new drawings to indicate what's being not touched as a result of the section 106?
Bob, do you want to speak to that?
Certainly. As part of the MOA that was agreed to by the town, the library, and Mass Historic as well, we've committed to 4 locations that we will remove, protect woodwork and attempt to find a new location for that woodwork within the library. We haven't identified, we know where it's coming from. We have not yet identified where it potentially can go to in the library, and might that require some architectural work? It might. We don't know at this point. And then the other piece of it is that we are to backing up a little bit, 80% of the woodwork stays in place. 80% of the woodwork isn't even being touched. Of the 20% that is being touched, there are 4 locations that we're going to look to repurpose within the library. And then the balance of the wood material is going to be saved, and we're going to work with Fontaine to make certain that it can find a good home when it's done, because that's the commitment, that it doesn't end up in a dumpster. It goes somewhere where it gets repurposed.
So does the Jones Library Building Committee get to weigh in on that? Are we part of that discussion at all as a design element?
What is the question?
Sure.
I'm sorry.
If this committee, which I thought was, involved in design
I
decisions.
just wanted to hear the question. I'm sorry. What was the question?
Okay, the question is, does Jones Library Building Committee get involved in that discussion at all of where we might find new homes for the wandering woodwork?
We will take a look at any proposal that comes forward, but we now have a contract, we have specifications of it. So yeah, we can take a look. But the Jones Library Building Committee we cannot be, we've got to be pacing it with decisions as they need to get made, but sure, we'll take a
Right.
look.
Yeah.
Christine?
Yeah, I assume FAA is working on this and they'll come forward with suggestions of
Right.
where they think, and maybe we will see it at that point, but that's our architect.
Right. Okay, any other questions? All right, thanks for the question, Bob. Thanks so much. So we have attendees. If anybody would like to make a public comment, please raise your virtual hand. Okay, I see no public comment. I do want to just thank you all for the work that you have done in your various capacities over a long period of time. We now have a library project to move to successful completion. That project was again endorsed by the town council. We've gone through the various approvals with one pending. There'll be a tremendous amount of work that needs to be done. The first iteration of it is going to be done by library staff in terms of moving into the new and temporary facility. As I said in public, this is a town project. And I hope we can all, moving forward, commit ourselves to making it the best renovated, expanded library that it can be, regardless of our views of the wisdom of the project in and of itself. We've been lucky that residents in this town have followed us closely. They care deeply about the library. And we need everybody to be involved as they can in helping us make it the best library for the town of Amherst. There'll be a lot of things that we'll need to figure out as we go forward to make that happen. And I just didn't want this moment to go by without expressing gratitude to each of you and pay really a particular tribute to Bob and to Sharon. Bob came on and just took the project seamlessly. And Sharon has been a consistently, fine leader for the library. Exercised good judgment and committed above all else to making sure that the library that Amherst has would be a library that would serve the residents of Amherst and all of its users well. So this is a time to say thank you. And all problems going forward now we will blame on you. So enjoy the gratitude.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Christine.
I just wanted to say, and all that shine back at you. Include
Thank you.
yourself in that, please.
Thank
Yes.
you. Oh, okay. So let's adjourn and everybody have a good weekend.